Yo, what is up, everybody? Welcome to Tarot Thursday. I am Kim, your host, and this is our Mystic Road Trip. And this is a podcast where I take you along with me on my Mystic Road Trip that I'm doing on search of more knowledge and finding the things that really resonate with my blueprint. And if you're asking what does that mean, basically, I feel like we're given a blueprint, and you can take this either way it goes. You can use it as your birth chart, or if you're into human design, that's your blueprint. Life happens, and things get built up, and people make renovations that shouldn't have been made, and make changes to your blueprint, whether that's through trauma, whether that's through societal expectations, all that kind of stuff. And eventually, and this is kind of what I think a midlife crisis is that we all find a way to try to figure out how to go back to our initial blueprint. And that's what I'm on my trip to do right now, is to try to find that original blueprint that was given to me at birth. And I want you guys to come along, because maybe what I learn, maybe what I share will help you guys do the same thing. That is my ultimate life goal. I am on this planet to learn things and share. And that's kind of one of the things I realized by deconstructing and figuring out what my original blueprint is. You know, it's kind of like, you know how sometimes in those old houses, like, people move in and they knock on the wall and they hear there's an echo, and so they cut it out and suddenly there's another room. It's kind of what happens, at least for me. So I'm hoping that what I do helps you. I am a tarot reader, an astrologer. I am a meditation guide. I also am a spiritual and wellness coach and a holistic dietitian. You can see I'm all into the spiritual wellness and what a lot of people might call woo-woo stuff, and that's kind of what this is about. This, as I said, is Tarot Thursday, and what I do on this episode of the podcast is take one tarot card a week, and I dive deep into it. We talk about what it means, the symbology, the numerology, how you can use it in mindfulness, as well as talking about some associations, whether that's element, goddess, crystal, herb, everything I can give you to really help your practice. So today, by the way, I finished the major arcana. I'm into the suit of swords, so if you want to learn more about those major arcana, go back and check out my catalog. If you're on YouTube, you may have to jump to Spotify, because I started my YouTube after I had done all that. Maybe at some point I'll go back and do videos to fill in the gap. But right now, if you want all of it, you're going to have to check out Spotify, because those are the two places you can find me. And yeah, so with that being said, let's do some housekeeping and shameless plugging. If you want to reach out to me, there's definitely ways to do that through social media. There's an email. If you're watching on YouTube, you can just comment on the video. I would really appreciate that. If you want to support the podcast, there's ways to do that financially through Buy Me a Coffee and Patreon. But if you don't have cash, completely understand. If you would just like, comment, share, follow, subscribe, all those kind of good things, the more that you interact with the video or the audio podcast, the more the algorithm sees that people are interested, and the more it'll push it out, and the bigger we can build this community, because I would like to not be the only one driving this mystic road trip. Eventually, someday, I'd love to have guests on here. And there's some really cool podcasts I listen to, and there's some really cool people I follow on social media that I would love to have on to have good conversations about things. But I think it's only going to happen once we start getting a community and my face starts getting out there in front of everybody. So let's do that. Come on, guys. Let's do this so we can get more voices and build a bigger community, and we can help each other, and we can grow together. And as I said, go more towards our authentic self, or as I like to say, our initial blueprint. All right. If you want more on this tarot card and so much more, make sure you check out my Medium publication. And if you are into history, feminism, and women, then you should check out my other podcast. It's called Where All the Ladies At. I basically go into myth, legend, and history and try to figure out where the fuck the women went, and really talk about people we know, yes, but also a lot of women that we may never have heard of, and really shine a light on them. So if that's something you're into, make sure you check that out as well. That's it for the shameless plugging and the housekeeping. Let's jump into today's topic, which is the Four of Swords. All right, so this card is definitely sometimes misunderstood, but it is a very powerful card. Now, a lot of tarot readers will talk about how, like, this is kind of mundane cards. Any of the numbers, so from 2 to 9, 2 to 10 really are like mundane, so they're like everyday things. The ace can go either way, right? It can be major or a mundane card. And then of course you have the court cards, and those are kind of like related to people-y things. And then you have the major arcana, which are major events. Now, I do kind of prescribe to that in some ways, but I also talk about how every suit is its own story, right? So just like the major arcana is a story, every suit is its own story. So from ace to king, right? And that's where you're going. You're going from beginning to reaching your full potential. And that's the whole story, right? So 4 is kind of like one of those cards that you kind of have to work through, right? Maybe you've been feeling drained. Maybe you've been feeling overwhelmed. Maybe you need a reset, right? And this card is basically saying that's what you need, right? So we're going to really dive more into that. Let's do this. So let's talk about the meaning, right? So basically, the universe is saying you need to slow down. You need to take care of yourself, right? You need to rest. You need to reflect. You need to recover after struggle, right? You've been pushing yourself really hard, whether that's physically, emotionally, or spiritually. Because it is swords, I will say that in my recollection, it tends to lean more towards the emotional and mental and that kind of aspect. And the Four of Swords is saying you need to pause and recharge, right? It's not really an action-driven card. It's more of like a mindful break, right? So take a breath. You'll be stronger for it, right? It's not about avoiding the problems. It's really more about honoring your body and the natural rhythm of things, right? It isn't, without rest, no matter how tough you are, no matter strong you are, you're going to falter, right? Sleep is important, right? That's, if you listen to any wellness person, sleep is the most important thing. And that's because sleep and rest is important because it allows your body to heal, your mind to do its thing, right? And so it's a big part of your growth. So that being said, that's the basis of this card. Now let's really look at the imagery. And once again, I'll always say, when I'm talking about the imagery, I'm talking about the traditional deck, which is the Rider-Waite deck. And when I'm talking about like reading it, when we go into reverse and upright reverse, I'm talking about the traditional way of reading it. Not, I know not everybody reads it the same way. Okay, so let's start. So first of all, when you look at it, right, the card, it has a knight lying on a tomb, resting in place, hands in prayer, there's swords hanging above him, and one resting beneath him, right? It's pretty obvious for most people. Although I will say, when this card comes up with a lot of my people that have never had a tarot reading, they're like, oh, and I'm like, no, it's not what you think, because they see a tomb and it's just kind of like death card, right? They're like, oh, and I'm like, no, it's not like that. So it's basically, knights have fight battles, right? But in between the battles, they have to rest, right? They have to restore their strength, right? So, and the praying hands, that's talking about spiritual contemplation and inner work and all that kind of stuff, right? This 3 swords above represents conflicts and mental burdens, and these are the things that are still holding, hanging over us. Now, they're hanging over us, and if we stood up and tried to go, what would happen? That sword would go right through us, right? So it's kind of like saying, hey, you need to rest. Like, these things are hanging over your head. They're not fully settled, but you need rest, right? challenges won't disappear. They simply pause for a moment. You know, the single sword beneath the knight really is the clarity and wisdom that you get from rest, right? It's a symbol of a sharp mind, and that's what happens when you take the time to really sit there and reflect and rest and allow your body to do what it's supposed to do, right? There is a true understanding of things when you actually take a moment of quiet to really think about things, right? If you look at the card, there's also a stained glass window, and it often depicts them. It's like a depth of the card, right? It says there's spiritual guidance somewhere out there if you take the time, right? There's divine support available for you, but you have to rest and be able to hear him, right? You're never alone, really, right? Even if you go into solitude and you need that time, the stillness isn't necessarily emptiness, guys. It's an act of compassion for yourself, and sometimes, honestly, an act of compassion for other people. Because what happens when you get so stressed out, then you start taking things out on the people around you. So taking this time to really think through things and calm and allow yourself to have that time would be awesome, right? So like just taking it would be great, right? So now let's look at the numerology. So four is about stability, foundations, structure, right? Four walls, four legs and a chair. There is needed to be a moment of stillness before you can move forward, right? And that's the calm before a storm, right? Or the quiet before a major life movement, right? In tarot, fours signal a need to establish balance, right? If you look at all the fours as we go forward, you'll see that that's kind of a common theme with the fours, right? And that's not just emotions, that's thoughts, that's daily routine. Everything needs to be sturdy, right? Everything needs to be stable. You don't want to work on a shaky table. That's just not what you want to do, right? You need to create a solid base before you move forward. Stability in this card comes from rest. It's a very structured pause. It's like taking that necessary retreat before you jump into the next conversation, major decision, battle, whatever it is, right? Burnout happens. We all know that. I think in this day and age, if you don't know what burnout is, I would be very, very shocked. And if you've never experienced it, I would be even more shocked. There's so much go, go, go in this world that everybody knows about burnout, right? And if you try to push forward without reinforcing your foundation, bad things are going to happen. So rest is not like a luxury. It's not a vacation. It is an absolute necessity. I say this as a spiritual coach. I say this as a wellness coach. Rest is one of the most important. Rest and water. Those are the things, right? You need to slow down. And that's not a sign of weakness, guys. Slowing down and giving yourself and taking care of yourself is not a sign of weakness. It's actually a very, very wise move, right? So that is what the numerology is saying, 4. That's what the imagery is saying. That's what everything is pointing to, right? Rest is not a weakness. It is a necessity, right? So let's go into some interesting things. We're going to talk about elements, sign, and planet that are associated with it, as well as like how to read it upright and reversed. And we'll go there. So automatically, we know if you've watched the previous podcast, swords are all about the air element, right? That's communication and mental energy. Air is about intellect and ideas and the way we process the world around us and the way we communicate. It's ever present, right? Now, the 4 of Swords is connected to Jupiter in Libra. Makes perfect sense, right? Libra is about balance. Okay, this pairing is kind of dynamic, right? Jupiter is expansion and growth and wisdom, and it's meaning Libra, and that's the sign of balance. So if you think about it like that, it's perfect, right? So Jupiter is saying, like, if you can find balance, everything is going to expand and grow, right? Now, Jupiter wants to seek truth and the higher understanding, and Libra is like equilibrium and measured action. So together there's rest as a path of wisdom, right? That is something I would love everybody to repeat that with me. Rest as a path to wisdom. The best way to gain insight sometimes isn't by doing more stuff. It's by slowing down, stepping back, and allowing clarity to really kind of emerge naturally. If you guys do that every morning, for instance, so I'm a teacher and I do a lot of things and I'm very active and I have a lot of businesses that I'm starting, right? On top of doing my freelance stuff and all that stuff. Now, every morning I take 10 minutes and I turn everything off, right? I don't touch my phone. There's no background noise. It's nothing. Just me and my cat. I don't even speak. I just sit there in silence. And this rest, this quiet, right, allows me to gain insight, right? It allows me to attach my clarity, right? And because if you look at Jupiter in Libra, that's kind of the message that's coming through, right? So it's like restoration isn't about stopping completely, but slowing down enough that you can recalibrate and figure out the next steps that need to be taken, right? That way you're moving with purpose and precision and not just aimlessly floundering around and really hurting yourself. Now, if we jump into how to read it, this is kind of an interesting thing. So let's talk. So once again, let me repeat, I'm talking about traditional ways. So when it's upright, the Four of Swords is like clear signal that it's time to take a pause and regroup, right? And it often is talking about the fact that you've been under a lot of stress, mentally, emotionally, yes, physically, but honestly, like I said, because it's sword, it's to me, it's more the mental and emotional aspect. And you have to step back, right? Time for rest and recuperation, need to retreat, meditation or mindfulness would be a good idea. Healing is an active process, right? Now, if we read it in reversed, instead of peace and contemplation, it suggests that restlessness and resistance to slowing down. And so that means like you're fighting it. You need it, but you're like, no, there's an inability to relax. You're avoiding self-reflection. You don't want to think about it. Maybe you're jumping back into action because you feel pressured. There's things that need to be confronted, but they're being ignored. All these things, this is what this card means, right? You're pushing yourself too hard and you're ignoring the need for self-care. It also can indicate like a fear of stillness. So maybe you're afraid to slow down. Maybe you're afraid because if you slow down, you're going to have to face the thoughts and emotions that are in your head, and you don't want to, right? If that's something that's resonating with you, you need to stop running. You have to acknowledge what's surfacing. You have to give yourself space to really process things. Healing is not always just about physical rest, right? Sometimes it's about mental rest too, and emotional rest. Sometimes that means pulling yourself away from situations or people, or as some people say, going into hermit mode. Sometimes going into hermit mode is what's necessary for you to figure out how to move forward, right? And that's kind of how I would read it if it was upside down. It's like maybe you need to take some time away. Maybe you need to take some time alone to kind of work through things, That's just kind of what I'd say. Now, let's go into some more correspondences, right? So I like to talk about crystals. I like to talk about herbs, deities, color, all of that, right? So the crystal that kind of goes with this is the amethyst. And the reason that is because the amethyst is created, it helps, calm the mind. It enhances intuition. It really talks about spiritual awareness, right? It's definitely a good stone for meditation, and it can help bring a lot of clarity when you're starting to feel overwhelmed, right? As for herb, lavender, which makes perfect sense, right? If you're into this stuff, lavender is a soothing herb, right? It helps with relaxation, stress relief, mental clarity. You can burn lavender incense, you can drink lavender tea, you could put lavender in your bath, whatever it makes, it's all going to be good. Now, I'm going to talk about a deity. I chose one, and here's the thing. You can choose, there's many deities that would work with this, right? I chose Hestia because she's the goddess of hearth and home and sacred stillness. And she kind of represents that warm inner sanctuary, the peace that can be found in stillness, and the importance of really tending to your own fire, right? If you work with her energy, it can really help you create a more personal space where it's safe for reflection, right? When it comes to colors, I couldn't choose. So deep blue or violet, these are both colors like peace and wisdom and spiritual awareness. They can help encourage like introspection and relaxation and a deeper connection. Wearing or surrounding yourself with the color could be really good, really enhance that energy, right? So let's talk about mindfulness. It's something how I live my life. So how can you really put Four of Swords into your daily routine? So it's about rest as an essential part of growth, right? So slowing down with intention. I would say starting a morning meditation, 5 minutes of silent reflection. Like I said, you can do something like I do where you have 10 minutes, deep breathing, focused awareness, whatever can set the tone for a balanced and centered mindset. That is a perfect thing to the way you do, simply sitting in silence with your breath. And maybe if you want in your head, like talking about calming affirmations, right? That's great. If you start to feel overwhelmed during the day, maybe take a deliberate breath and don't be guilty about it. A lot of the times we resist pausing because we equate it with laziness, but really truthfully, rest is necessary, as I've been saying, whether you need to step away from the screen, whether you need to take a small walk, whatever it is, just whatever you need to do so that you can prevent that burnout, right? You have to do that. Journaling is another great tool, right? It does help getting everything out on paper. You can think about like what thoughts or worries have been weighing me down, that kind of thing, right? And because you're getting them out onto paper, it allows you to kind of name your mental burdens, and really then if you can name it, then you can let it go. It's kind of like, and I equate this is kind of a weird thing. It just popped into my head, so I'm gonna say it. So a lot of like horror movies and stuff, in order to fight a demon or something, you have to find out their name. And the minute you say their name, they're gone, right? It's kind of the same thing. And I'm not saying your thoughts are demons. What I'm saying is like by naming your thoughts and naming the things that are troubling you, you're taking power away from them. Because now you've named them. Once you've named them and figured out where they came from, you can then cut them off and you can work to fight with them. I'm not saying it's like that easy, but what I'm saying is it's a start, right? You can also try, like I said, using a lot of the correspondence. So lavender, amethyst, all those things could be good. The main thing is to really look at it and really recognize that there is power in stillness. And that is what the Four of Swords is talking about. And that is it, guys. That's the Four of Swords. I hope you enjoyed. I hope you got a lot of good information. And please, for God's sakes, take some rest. I swear, it's not going to kill you. It's not going to hurt nothing. It's only going to help you. So if you pulled this card, that's definitely what the universe is saying to you. As always, guys, I hope, like I said, inspired you. I hope it helped you build more of your practice and think about things in a different way. That is it. So as always, if you'll reach out to me, there's plenty of ways to do that. If you want to support the podcast, you can do that financially, or you can just like, comment, share, follow, subscribe, do all that kind of good stuff. If you want more information on this stuff and much more, check out the Medium publication. And if you're into history, feminism, women, make sure to check out my other podcast called Where All the Ladies At. And that is it for this week, guys. I'll see you next week. And as always, stay safe, stay blessed, and stay curious.